There is one more question about Ukraine from Svetoslav. There is a movement to return the name to Zhukov Avenue and around the Zhukov's monument in Kharkov. As you know, Maidanots want to demolish the monument and permanently erase Zhukov's name from street names. Those people who didn't support Maidan defend Zhukov, but Zhukov was a traitor and guilty of the deaths of tens of thousands of Russians. How to be? Don't defend Zhukov's name in Ukraine and thus let Maidanots clean up the traitors from history.
First of all, Zhukov wasn't a traitor. He represented a different governance concept of Russia. He didn't collude with fascist Germany, didn't cross over to the German side as Vlasov did. Vlasov was a traitor, but Zhukov represented a completely different conception which didn't serve Russia's interests, which would make Russia a raw material appendage for the West. But he didn't betray in a sense that he could be designated as a traitor. It was approximately the confrontation at the level of a civil war. It is not direct analogy. I said it to give you a general idea. Zhukov struggled with Stalin. Each of them had their own viewpoint on the Soviet Union's future. Zhukov was like Napoleon's marshals, rags to riches. They at once became new nobility. Zhukov wanted exactly the same. But here Stalin talks about people's democracy where everyone is equal to each other. How is that? Did I fight on the fields of civil war for that? I wanted to be a new nobleman, a new graf, or new prince. Zhukov had just a different viewpoint, and so he played a certain giveaway game without pity towards Russian people to overthrow Stalin. Zhukov had a different morality. He craved to become the new elite of Russia. But of Russia, nevertheless. Let it be downsized, whatever, but at the end of the day, he wished to be a ruler in Russia. Regarding the confrontation in Kharkov, well, Ukraine should remain in permanent emotional and morally wound-up status, pretty wound up, so that everyone's brain would boil with rage and common sense would boil away. It is done by creating a lie number 1, the fascists, and lie number 2, the Antifa, by engaging and then dividing the whole population between the lies and pushing one into another. One group who came forward in support of an everlasting act of courage of the Soviet people and the victory over fascist Germany will speak out about Soviet people's deeds of valor. The second group, who came forward against the cultural identity of Ukraine and for the transformation of Ukraine into a raw material appendage of God knows who, as long as there is a master, will speak out at the behest of the instigator about how Zhukov directed the troops with a heavy death toll. After all, Zhukov. We have a poem, I was killed near Rzev, and the song, Silence on the Yellow Heights. Gigantic losses are directly connected with Zhukov's command in both places, but when Zhukov realized that he can be punished for the failure of offense at Berlin, when Konev's army was deployed, he conducted a superb Berlin operation and entered Berlin. That means he wasn't a fool. Here is taking place a simple confrontation. Don't play in those games. If you see that you are called to the streets and offered to choose between lie number 1 and lie number 2, then no, it is a mind game. Two teams should clash, destroy each other, and leave the battlefield in favor of the fight initiator. Why do take part in it? Maidanots have no brains, they jump up and down, but it's their problems. But why would you put your head on the block? Look, there were a lot of renamings in Ukraine, but there were not any protests. Why? No one needed protests, no one organized them. But now, It is needed to spill people's blood like in Odessa. That is why these clashes are provoked. Maybe it is time to stop and think. How did you let such a massive people's participation in this act, this circus, called President's election? Maybe it is time to stop jumping up and down and halt elections in Rada. You stabilize the situation in Ukraine, then a force will come in the name of Lugansk and Donetsk republics, will restore order over all Ukraine, and normal life will be restored without clashes. But a measured political decision must be taken, which will break the bloody wheel that smashes people's lives. That bloody wheel must be stopped. It must be stopped politically, not in the street clashes. All have a political opportunity to do that. Could they not be a part of this circus called President's election? They could, but practically all the political parties were campaigning. We should overthrow Poroshenko. We should overthrow Poroshenko. You are telling them, guys, you don't fight to overthrow Poroshenko. You fight for the legitimization of Maidan. So Maidan, the state coup and murders become justifiable. You are for the legitimization of the war in Ukraine. You are for the legitimization of killings of Donbas people. You voted for all of that when you voted for Zelensky. It is naive to think that individuals who kill people to get in power, then kill people to start the war, then kill people, kill children during the war, that those individuals would say, okay, we are having elections now, and you can put us on trial as war criminals. Where do you find such morons? Nevertheless, people were fooled to come out and be part of this election circus. You need to stop. You will decide later, Zhukov or no Zhukov. But in order to do that, first of all, you should establish order in Ukraine. Stop being a part of all these scams, circuses, and support the restoration of order, which can be made by Lugansk and Donetsk republics. That is to rebuild Ukraine in that format. And then everything can be sorted out without scuffle and by social dialogue. Focus on the primary goal and don't put yourself under the fire being a part of provocations. It would be another story if you risk for real thing, but it is a clear provocation organized from above. Absolutely organized from above.